Welcome to Sustainability in the Air, the world's first podcast dedicated to sustainable aviation. This show is brought to you by Simplifying, which has been helping build trust in travel for over a decade. Through in-depth conversation with aviation leaders, Sustainability in the Air breaks through the current clutter and provides a clear roadmap for the future. It's about time we embarked on creating a net zero future for the industry, together. This season of the podcast is brought to you by CarbonClick, leaders in managing carbon offsetting programs for top global airlines. Without further ado, here is your host, Shashank Nigam, CEO of Simplifying.
Welcome to Sustainability in the Air podcast, and today it's all going to be about carbon offsetting, which really is the only feasible way right now to fly net zero. And lots of airlines are doing projects, some work, some don't. And before I introduce my guests, I have to share my personal story of the first time I offset my own carbon footprint. This was on flight from Mumbai to London, Heathrow via Zurich on Swiss. And after I booked my flight, Swiss offered me Lufthansa's Compensate program, if I'm not wrong, where I could offset my carbon. And I was pretty excited. This is the first time I was being offered that. So I said, I'll do it. It was for 99 Swiss francs. I still remember. And I felt really good about it. I took a screenshot of that. I posted it on social media. I shared it with my team. And I felt completely guilt-free flying on that flight. When I land on Heathrow, at Heathrow, just after immigration, they had these huge posters of elephants. Heathrow was running this campaign called Elephant is in the Room, which is sustainability. And there was a little QR code below the elephant which said, scan here and offset your flight right now. And just for the sake of it, while waiting for my bags, I did scan it. And it allowed me to enter my origin and destination. And lo and behold, I could pay £9 to offset the same flight. I tried it again in case there was an error, but there wasn't. I could pay £9. By this point, I felt completely ripped off, that Swiss has probably ripped me off. What is this? Carbon offsetting is Wild West Central. But today we will find out whether it truly is. I'd like to introduce Dave Rouse, the CEO of CarbonClick, and Michelle Nordomir, who is the COO and has significant aviation background herself, to join me as guests today. Dave, it's great to have you on, but tell me, why and when did you start CarbonClick? What got you into this green stuff? Is it just because you're Kiwi?
It's certainly part of our DNA. I live a very outdoors lifestyle, very connected with nature, and love to protect it, and want to protect that for not only my kids but everybody's kids around the globe. We need to be reconnected with the planet that supports us. It's good from a mental health perspective. It's good for a sustainability perspective. We can't keep living the way that we're living. I was pretty passionately supporting climate tech. I'm a former pilot myself as well, like Michelle is. So aviation has been one of those industries really close to my heart that I've wanted to do something to help. When we saw the opportunity to really revolutionise carbon offsetting through a single click process, driving higher uptake rates and driving higher impact out of every click, that to me seemed like a no-brainer way that I could really do something and bring a team around us that could really contribute to reducing or to fighting climate change. That's a pretty solid reason to get in and go all guns blazing to fight something that we all care deeply about.
That's definitely inspiring, Dave, and congratulations on making progress in this mission. Michelle, you have an aviation background. You used to work with Auckland Airport. How did you end up with CarbonClick?
Yeah, I've spent 20 years in the aviation industry. So I started out as a flying instructor. I did a degree in aviation management. I've worked for both airlines and airports, both in operational and commercial roles. It's an industry that I love. It's completely in my blood. So my role prior to CarbonClick was at Auckland Airport, where my role was the complete opposite of sustainability. It was actually working with airlines to bring in more flights through Auckland and connect through to the tourism industry. About 3 or 4 years ago, I started hearing the odd person say that they were trying to cut back on flying because of the impact on the environment. And at that point, I knew nothing about sustainability. To be honest, I went off and did a bit of research myself and thought I'll write up a one-pager. So the next time someone says that, I can say, look, the aviation industry has got all these ambitious targets and is doing these great things. And don't worry, you can keep flying. But actually what I found was not quite that story, that, aviation really does have a significant impact, and, there's a lot of work that needs to be done. And as I got deeper and deeper into that, my values started to change. And I presented to our leadership team to give them those insights and to look at opportunities. And it was at that point that I connected in with the CarbonClick team. And I think it's one of those things, once you know, you can't unknow. And then it sort of becomes a mission to do something about it. So I still absolutely love aviation. I still want to travel the world and do all these cool things. But, we've got the biggest problem is climate change going forward. And I want to do my part to fix the problem, be on the right side of history.
Well, you're definitely on the right side of history now, on CarbonClick side. Dave, my experience, is that normal or abnormal?
Yeah, it's certainly a little wild west out there. We're doing what we can to try and raise the bar and bring some consistency and awareness to the types of offsets. But I think the pricing issue that you encountered depends entirely on how your flight is offset, not whether your flight is offset. And that's we'll speak about that a little later, I guess.
Absolutely. Now, here's the thing, right? I think this goes down, we can dive straight in. CarbonClick has been leading a lot of airlines' carbon offsetting programs. And it's, as I said, one of the fewest ways you can fly carbon neutral today. But while lots of people want to fly carbon neutral, not as many do. I think the take-up rate is anywhere between 1 to 3% when it comes to voluntary carbon offsets. The question is, does this really work with such a low offset uptake?
Yeah, that's really true. People really are worried about climate change and they want to do the right thing. But when push comes to shove, many will choose not to offset. So worldwide, we know about 1% of people are offsetting their flights. And we've found that there are 3 key reasons for this. So firstly, if offsetting isn't integrated into the booking flow, then very few people will do it. We've got about 50% of airlines that have carbon offsetting programs, but the vast majority of these aren't integrated. So if offsetting is an option post-purchase, very few people will do it. It's got to be a simple option within the booking flow and with the flight emissions pre-calculated. A second reason is a lack of understanding. So people often struggle to understand how a project, which is usually on the other side of the world, works and how it can really make a difference. It needs to be explained really simply, and the projects need to resonate with those passengers. And then thirdly, there's a lack of trust. People don't always trust that the project stacks up or that their money is going where the airline says it's going. And people really need to be assured of this.
That is a very, very important point, that there is sometimes confusion or lack of education which results in a very low uptake. And my question then is, should carbon offsetting be the responsibility of the airline then, as opposed to pushing it to the customers and expecting them to do this on their own?
I think possibly. Going forward, I think it creates some unfair market advantages and disadvantages. If only a handful of airlines are doing it, often the other airlines around the world won't do it, so they can offer their flights cheaper. So essentially, it all starts to balance out, but those airlines that are doing the right thing become disadvantaged. So I think at the moment, it needs to be a voluntary program for passengers.
Now, that's interesting you say that, because we've seen both legacy airlines as well as LCC airlines do this. So EasyJet automatically offsets every single flight, and Delta in the United States also automatically offsets every single flight. Whereas Delta's competitor United does not do carbon offsetting, and EasyJet's competitor Ryanair does not do carbon offsetting as well. Who wins here? Who's right and who's wrong?
Yeah, it's a tough one, and I think there's some real leaders coming forward in this space, and I say good on them. It's really going to come down to the quality of the projects. Probably Dave, you have a few experiences on this one.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's one thing to calculate accurately and then to say that you're offsetting, but what are you offsetting with? And how beneficial is that project to our future? How much does it really take into account the impact of flying? Because we know that the impact of flying, without confusing things, goes a little bit beyond just a simple greenhouse gas calculation. There's radiative forcing to take into account, for example, which is a can of worms we don't want to open today. But just to keep it really simple, when customers are invited to do the offset themselves, the airline can still have a competitive price. So when they're doing a comparison, the person can first choose what's the most convenient time and what's the best price. And then the second or the third thing that they think about is the environmental impact. Now, that's where it needs to become an option for a customer. But that option needs to be really easy. And where the project money goes is really important, because customers treat it a little bit like a donation still, rather than taking responsibility for their emissions. There's a bit of both, but if you play on the donation strings, they want to see that it's going to a good cause, something that they can fall in love with. And so it's really important that those projects are not just any old project, which is not something that draws on their heartstrings, but something that really resonates with them. And Michelle touched on the locality, finding offset projects close to the region of those passengers or to that airline is quite important, but also high quality reforestation projects, which also include biodiversity and social benefits. And there's clean energy projects and sustainable aviation fuels that can be woven into a bit of a basket of offsets, but they need to pass certain integrity tests. And we mentioned earlier that the voluntary market is a little bit Wild West. There are varying degrees of additionality. Whether a project would have happened with or without that offset is sometimes questionable. Varying degrees of permanence, like pine forestry, for example, which has a high likelihood of forest fire. So we need to make sure that people are certain that those projects that they're supporting are really making a difference long term and are genuinely helping our planet. And on the flip side, they're also offsetting their flight so that they feel like they're doing the right thing for the next generation. They're also taking personal responsibility and maybe even making up for some sins of the past, because we've got ourselves into this situation, right? We need to make up for some of that and actually draw that carbon out of the atmosphere. So it sometimes even goes beyond just carbon neutrality.
That's a very well-reasoned argument. Thank you, Dave. When I spoke with Etihad's CEO Tony Douglas recently on this podcast, he mentioned that the quality of offsets is of critical importance. But who certifies or assesses how good an offset is? Is there an independent global body that does this accreditation? How do you select the projects that you do at CarbonClick?
Yeah, so there are different standards around the world, which is part of the problem. There are different registries which have similar rules. There's a bit of elasticity to the compliance markets, but it's not hard and fast. So what we have to do to protect the integrity of the projects we represent is we have to put another audit layer on top of them. So we go out there and look at permanence, additionality, social impact, biodiversity, and also leakage, like double counting as well, to make sure that every project that we're presenting as an option to the airlines to choose or to their customers in turn is one that we can all stand behind. And it's one way of protecting the brand of that airline so that they're not associated with a potentially contentious offset project.
Right. That's exactly right. How do you actually verify whether the project is legit? Does someone from CarbonClick go down there? How do you do this verification?
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you asked. So it's all done remotely. So we work with contractors all over the world, as well as partners. Like we've partnered with WWF, who help us assess the biodiversity impact. One project versus another, which one's going to have the maximum impact to help their goals, provide habitat for the endangered species they're trying to protect, and so on. So we partner a lot, but we do have permanent staff who do this for a day job full time. Auditing, assessing, and they're doing a lot of due diligence, a lot of background checks, making sure that the same owners of those projects don't also run palm plantations, for example. So we know that all we're doing is helping them perhaps get some money for the land that's not suitable for palm farming. We don't want to help bad people to profit and do more of the bad things that they're doing as an unintended consequence of trying to do good. So there's a lot of that background due diligence that we need to do that's often not done by the registries. But of course, we're buying certified projects. So for an initial step, all of those registries have already certified them and had those projects audited for accuracy and some other criteria, which gives us a head start.
Now, you've definitely got a process in order now where you verify these projects and you make sure that they're legitimate and of good quality. Was there a time where you made mistakes and you backed projects that may not have, stood this scrutiny that you do now and then changed the ways? Was there a learning curve for you as a startup yourself?
Yeah, there is. So, we always find better projects, better ways of doing things. We've had projects which we've done extensive due diligence on, and then we've checked in on a year later and found a couple of concerns around potentially things like how they treat their staff with ethics and so on. As we went through the certification for B Corp and had to bring in additional filters for our suppliers, that really highlighted a few gaps in our process that we've been able to close. Nothing too major. There's been no child labour instances or anything like that, but we've just been able to find better projects, that work with sustainable development goals and fair trade principles a lot more rigidly.
Right. No, that's definitely important to learn and then continue to improve and filter some of these projects. Now, since this is an aviation podcast, you've of course worked with a number of airlines. I'm curious if you're able to share an example of a successful implementation from an airline perspective of a carbon offsetting program.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. One that stands out is Etihad. They're so genuine in their approach to sustainability, and voluntary carbon offsetting for passengers is just one small part of that. But they're always looking to go above and beyond. And one thing that's a recent development is integrating into their loyalty rewards programs. So it gives people the opportunity to offset flights, but without having to part with real cash. And so we've found that is really successful. People are really, really happy to do that. It's exciting watching it. One of the things that we're really working hard on is integrating with the GDSs so that we can have a really easy option for airlines to quickly integrate, but to incorporate that complete transparency and trust process. So one of the things we do really different to anyone else is we purchase our carbon offsets in advance. And what this means that the moment that someone offsets a flight, they can actually see exactly where their money's gone. They can see full details of the project. They can see proof that CarbonClick has paid for the offsets, and they can see right down to government registry details. So I think those sorts of things within the Etihad program, it's really starting to show really good results.
Absolutely. I think it's all about radical transparency in this process. When it comes down to it, I'm quite amazed to learn that right when I pay, let's say through the Etihad loyalty program, I think it's called Etihad's Guest Conscious Choices program, I will find out exactly where my money is going, and that's so important to build trust.
Yes, exactly.
One of the other things is there's the IATA roadmap for airlines for 2050, which shows in 2050 that airlines will be carbon neutral but not really with carbon offsetting. Carbon offsetting is the flavor of the day. What is the future like for you? What do you see How do you see carbon offsetting playing a role in the future?
Yeah. So, I mean, at the moment, SAF's a fraction of a percent of the total aviation fuel, and any SAF for aviation draws SAF away from other industries. So it's a highly sought after product at the moment, but it's like liquid gold. But the rate of scaling up to produce SAF is going to take decades before we're at a point, and SAF will only be available logically in certain locations. Otherwise, you've got to emit carbon to tanker that SAF to other regions that can't produce the SAF, and so you lose some of that benefit as well. So we've got to be very pragmatic about how we treat SAF. But the forecast is that by 2030, the maximum component that SAF will make up of global aviation is 6%. It should increase rapidly after that, but we've got basically a decade before it makes any significant part of our flying journey. Only maybe the world's premium airlines will be able to afford to have SAF as 100%, and that'll take it away from the smaller airlines. But it's certainly going to be part of the solution. And this is the thing here, right? There's no one single solution that covers everything. We need a concerted approach from all angles. We need to be investing heavily into SAF. We need to be investing heavily into fuel efficiency regimes, and bringing in the air traffic control into that as well, because there's significant advantages and savings to be made, even with existing technologies. And then bringing in the SAF, and then offsetting what can't be reduced. It's a really powerful story when an airline is doing all of these things to reduce down that carbon footprint, and they might get it down to 70% of where it was. More efficient aircraft, more efficient engines, and the way that we operate those aircraft as well can be done a lot more efficiently. But when you've done all of those things and there's still a big footprint left, and then you ask the customer, would you like to offset this with these really meaningful projects? The customers are much more likely to say yes. Not only are they likely to say yes, but if we can give them an independently verified receipt so that they can learn about those projects and get that sense of relief that money has not gone into a black hole, it's actually gone somewhere and been accounted for, that creates a really positive experience for that customer, where they relate it straight back to that airline. And there's no better way to build brand loyalty than to have an immediate positive experience at the time that you're purchasing from that airline. And that's proven with 7 to 13% increased repurchase rates by people who click the CarbonClick green button versus those who don't click. And that makes good business sense as well. So we're saving the planet, we're helping airlines to do better in business at the same time, which makes it a total no-brainer in my mind.
No, this definitely makes sense. You mentioned the statistics, 7 to 13%. What is this conversion rate? 7 to 13% of consumers do what?
Repurchase. So 7 to 13% higher repurchase rates. So consumers are 7 to 13% more likely to purchase from you again if you've clicked the green offset button. And that's because of that high level experience that we develop for those customers post-purchase. We can't do too much in the cart or in the booking flow, otherwise we distract them from actually completing the booking. So there's very limited amount that can be done there. So we're very cognizant of that fact. We don't want to reduce your bookings at all. What we do want to do is make sure that post-purchase experience makes them more likely to rebook with you and more likely to click the green button again and reduce their impact.
Well, repeat business is definitely music to any business, not just airlines. Going earlier to Michelle's point on loyalty programs, I know Etihad and Qantas, I believe, are the two airlines that have integrated a green loyalty tier. Before coming onto this podcast, when I was preparing, I actually went through a few of the carbon offsetting options in airlines' website, not exclusively CarbonClick's options. And there were those in which I could just pay for the offset and it's a black hole. I don't know anything about it. There were those in which they showed me a basket of projects, but they didn't tell me when it will go to these projects, which project will benefit, and how much of my money is going to which project. And then there were those in which there was absolute transparency that once you buy, you know exactly which project went to, and there's a government receipt, for example. It seems that airlines are not leveraging this transparency that they should be in building trust. How can we change this?
The easy answer to that is what we've built our whole platform around, is providing that full transparency and audit trail right to the offset registry, like the United Nations FCCC registry, where those certificates are transacted, so that you can see that the project has been paid for, and you can see that your few dollars has made up a portion of that certificate and been accounted for on the registry publicly. So it's anonymised, but you can, like a courier track and trace, you can actually see that it's happened. And that was what revolutionised the courier industry, something so simple as being able to see where your parcel is. It's the same psychological reasoning that we're doing this as well, so that you can actually see that this has happened. You don't have to trust the airline, because there is a little bit of mistrust of airlines by the end of the booking flow, where people are assuming that their seat is already paid for and you're asking them to pay for their seat again, and all of these, you know, insurances that get tagged on. So when it comes to the little green button where you can offset your flight, there is hesitancy there, and there's nothing that we can do to avoid that, right? The airlines need to operate in this way.
Yeah, absolutely. There is that aspect. Now, you just mentioned cargo, and that is also important. Airlines carry cargo, and there are full cargo-only airlines. Do you see a use case for carbon offsetting for large cargo carriers like DHL or FedEx as well?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's early days, but we're actually already working with airlines to explore the strategies to offer a voluntary offsetting solution for cargo. So cargo accounts for about 27% of emissions from commercial aviation, so it's really important that this is included as well. So yeah, this isn't just for the likes of DHL, this is for all airlines that are carrying cargo. So, you know, it's going to benefit the cargo customers, who many of whom are looking for solutions, and also the airline who's going to get a competitive advantage by having that offering.
And is this usually paid for by corporates who are buying cargo capacity with airlines, or is this by consumers or airlines auto offsetting?
Usually by the corporates. Yeah.
Got it. Another question is, you know, you are not just dealing with airlines, you're also working with e-commerce and way beyond airlines. Are there lessons that you can share that have, you know, things that have worked within the e-commerce space that airlines can learn from when it comes to offsetting?
Yeah, absolutely. So the main lesson from the e-commerce space is, despite us having, you know, thousands of algorithms and calculation parameters, we can't still calculate the carbon footprint of every product. A litre of milk, for example, in Australia versus a litre of milk in Sweden is two very different carbon footprints. So what we've had to do in the wider e-commerce space is de-link the calculation part from the fact that this is a climate positive donation. People know that there is a carbon footprint regardless of what that carbon footprint is exactly, and they know that they have to do something. They know that we're not in a perfect world. Our lesson is that people want something easy. They know they're having an impact. They want to do something that costs less than the price of a cup of coffee, generally speaking. And if we can keep it within those parameters and have projects that they fall in love with, they'll donate every time. And so then they're less worried about whether they get 100 kilos of carbon or 50 kilos of carbon for their few dollars, but far more worried about, is that going to be permanent carbon? Is it going to be carbon that's continuing to sequester for generations to come? Are they, you know, is their $2 being put to a use that they really care about? That's one of the key learnings from us. The other key learning is that people want to go climate positive. They don't just want to have no impact. They actually want to make good some of the mistakes from the past. So they're quite happy to over offset. Now, we haven't done this in an airline situation yet, where they're making up for the past, but it's certainly something that we could look at in the future. Maybe 10 years down the track, where compliance becomes a bigger part of the market, people could voluntarily offset the radiative forcing element or make up for something that they've done in the past as well. So there's a big future here of learnings that have come out of the wider e-commerce space. But it's the biggest learning is that it's all about the story. Where does their dollar go, and how does that impact the planet, more so than is it an exact reference to the product or to the flight even that they're purchasing.
Now, you gave a really good analogy of the milk carton in Australia versus milk carton in Sweden. Similarly, flying, from Dubai to London, you might be flying on an A380 versus which is 12 years old, or you might be flying on a 787 or an A350, which is a year or 2 years old. How do you make sure that your calculation for the carbon offsets and the carbon footprint is very specific to each aircraft type and the uniqueness of that flight itself?
Good question. We use a company called RDC Aviation. They're based in the UK, and they provide the methodology and data set behind our climate-friendly traveller product. So emissions are really specific to the airline rather than taking the average across the route or by aircraft type. So airline-specific factors such as the aircraft age or the engine type, the seat configurations, and load factors are also updated on a monthly basis. So it means that passengers are actually offsetting an accurate amount of emissions. We're currently reviewing IATA's new methodology, so this is also something that we can incorporate if preferred by airlines.
That's fantastic. And is there a feedback loop then in case things, some data points might be off? Is there some sort of repair work that goes on to make sure that it remains accurate here?
Yeah, absolutely. And if the data isn't available, it will default to that average kind of position. But yeah, we're absolutely monitoring that all the time as our RDC Aviation.
Got it. Now, from what it seems like, from what you're saying, if you have transparency, radical transparency in terms of projects, if you have high quality carbon credits that you're choosing, and if you're hitting the customer at the right time in the booking, this seems to be a win-win. Having said that, if I want to take a flight from Vancouver to Auckland to come see you guys, does that mean I get a get out of jail free card just by carbon offsetting my flight, and I can fly 10 times if I want in the next year? Is this a get out of jail card for aviation, carbon offsetting?
Look, it's definitely like the likes of Corsair have attracted that kind of scrutiny, and sometimes it can be perceived in that way, but I think offsetting is more about being a temporary bridge until those technological solutions and wide-scale SAF eventuate. It's such a hard sector to decarbonise, especially when emissions reductions through technology have been outpaced by industry growth. We need to take action now, and carbon offsetting is something that, if done well and using quality carbon credits, it really is a powerful way to remove the carbon and to build that clean energy infrastructure to avoid further emissions.
Lots of airlines are just getting started. There's pressure now post-COVID as they're emerging from the pandemic that they have to take sustainability seriously. What would your advice be to an airline starting out? How should they manage their mix of offers to customers when it comes to flying greener?
I think it's about embracing the challenge openly and honestly. I mean, aviation isn't the enemy. People love to travel the world and see their friends and family and to fulfill business opportunities. But I mean, decarbonising aviation, it's hard and it needs a lot of collaboration. So I think for the airline sharing what it's doing, about fuel efficient aircraft or using SAF, being open and honest and encouraging travellers to reduce their emissions by travelling in economy class or travelling light or travelling direct. And then, if you're giving travellers that opportunity to take more action through carbon offsetting as they want, make sure that your program offers high quality projects, that complete transparency around the transaction, and then a cumulative impact dashboard, like share the impact that it's having in the world and build that community of people that actually want to take action.
That definitely sounds inspiring to me, and something that I would encourage my entire team to offset their future flights. Dave, you were saying something?
Look, I think Michelle actually summed it up really well. It's a total no-brainer. From an airline's perspective, to be embracing this is to be engaging with your audience and building that brand alignment and loyalty with your audience who care about this. 81% of consumers care about climate change. But we're all humans and we want to connect, like Michelle says. We need to connect with one another and we need to appreciate this beautiful planet that we live on. Flying is a necessary part of that, and until we have new technologies 10, 20 years down the track that allow us to fly without, maybe on a higher percentage of SAF, maybe it's on completely new technology that doesn't exist today. Until then, we absolutely need to rely on offsetting to help us allow continuity of the industry to get to that point. It's a hump we have to get over. It's a total no-brainer that this is incorporated into the aviation journey.
No, fantastic. I applaud you for doing the right thing and enabling airlines as well as flyers to offset their emissions. Like you said, 85%, 81% or 85% of customers want to travel greener. Not all of them may know exactly what to do right now. And carbon offsetting is an immediate way they can take action. So I really appreciate you sharing. Is there anything that I might have missed that you would like to touch upon as we close up?
I would just say we only get one shot at fighting climate change. So we've got to do everything that we can possibly do, and we've got to encourage others' efforts. And, we've got to do this for our children and our grandchildren.
Just to follow on from that as well, most governments around the world have declared a climate emergency, and yet the rate of change, the decision making that traditionally exists within large organisations needs to be treated like we're in a climate emergency. We need to fast track these initiatives, whatever the initiative is, and not go through the 2-year cycle of should we do something, how should we do something. Aim for good, not for perfect, and just make a start on that journey is what I would urge all businesses to do, even outside of aviation.
And that is advice that I'm sure lots of executives will heed. Thank you for these insights. Extremely useful. Once again, congratulations on all the progress you both have made, and it's inspiring to hear of the mission and the impact you're having in aviation. Thank you so much for joining me on this podcast.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Sustainability in the Air, the world's first podcast dedicated to sustainable aviation. We hope you liked it and will share it with your network. Please also leave us a review. Awareness is the key to a green future. Your support will help our insights on sustainable aviation reach a wider audience. In addition, for every single listen of this podcast, we will plant a tree, and for every single review, we will plant 50 trees. You can also write to us at podcast@simpliflying.com. And for more content on sustainable aviation, please visit our website, simpliflying.com, and join the movement.